Hi, this is Bastiaan, and today we're going to revisit the line system from another perspective. So, in the previous vid on the line system, we saw three line systems where I played black, and these systems are also called the black line. But there's also such a thing as the white line, which means the same system is played by white. So this is an older game I played using the white side of the board, playing the lion. So game starts with d3, d5, knight to d2, knight to f6, and knight g to f3. So we're seeing a line system develop with colors reversed. Black continues with knight to c6, and I play e4. So we are a move up in comparison with the black lion, because typically e5 has already been played by black or by white. Now black plays e6, and he plays e6 as a supporting move for my e4 break. I do not exchange and continue with bishop to e2. So we're seeing standard line development. Bishop to c5, and now e5, taking advantage of the hole on e5. So black retreats, and we can see he has two attackers now on my pawn on e5, and I only have one defender. So black is thinking that I've overextended my pawn, and indeed, if you were to play d4 to support that pawn, we can see two attackers on this pawn with only one defender. So if knight takes, knight recaptures, bishop takes, I have lost the pawn, and black furthermore has a strong attack on my isolated pawn on e5. So d4 doesn't work, but our pawn isn't really overextended. There are a few ways for white to handle this situation. For instance, what I almost always play in line systems, but this time with colors reversed, is the move c3 or c6 with black. And now if black tries to take on the pawn, let's see what would happen. Knight takes pawn. I can play knight takes knight, knight recaptures, and d4 is a fork, getting a minor piece back. This is good for white. Keep in mind that we have to exchange the knights first. If we fork immediately, black may gain tempo by exchanging the knight with a check, which leaves black winning. But c3, in the spirit of the line system, is a move that will allow white to advance his pawns in the center. However, in this game, this move wasn't played. I play a different type of attack. That's knight to b3, attacking the bishop. And once again, now if knight takes knight, knight recaptures, we can see that this knight has become overloaded. Knight takes knight, knight takes bishop, and I'm up a minor piece. So the development of the knight to b3 counterattacks the bishop and overextends this bishop, this knight that is needed to attack the pawn on e5 as one of the two attackers, because we already have one defender. Black needs to retreat the bishop. So we can see that after retreating the knight, the second piece is going to retreat. Bishop retreats to b6, keeping the pressure on the diagonal instead of undeveloping completely. I play d4. we can see 3 of black's pieces being locked out of the game, and they're blocking the pawns of black, which will cause long-term problems. Also, we can see our supporting pawn on d4 becoming very strong and being protected by 3 pieces. So black continues with a6 to create an escape square for the bishop if needed. And I play bishop to g5. Now, with this overextended pawn, I'm getting support on the f6 square, meaning knight block is impossible. Black plays f6 in order not to lose the queen, but this creates a weakness on the f7 square, which I can take advantage of later on in the game. Pawn takes pawn, and now knight recaptures. I continue with knight to e5, threatening to exchange knights, which will lead to a double pawns for black. And of course, the knight cannot be recaptured, because if knight takes knight, pawn recaptures, and black will lose a minor piece. The knight cannot move because of the discovered attack on the queen. So instead, black remaneuvers his knight to e7, blocking the diagonal to the queen even more and preventing the double pawns. I play bishop to h5 check, taking advantage of the weakness on f7 that I created. Now g6 of course cannot be played, because there's no longer any support on the bishop on f6. I can recapture, gaining an attack on the rook. And if pawn takes bishop, queen takes with check and 2 attacks. So g6 defense doesn't work. Black instead remaneuvers the knight to g6 to block the second diagonal. I grab the knight, black recaptures, and we can see doubled isolated pawns on the g file. I grab the pawn on g6, threatening the rook. Rook moves to g8, and we can see that the rook has lost all mobility because of the knight. I continue with queen to f3, and we can see it becoming more and more difficult for black to move his pieces, because this rook is being boxed in, this bishop cannot move, this bishop could move to d7, this queen can no longer move to e7. It's becoming almost impossible for black to castle. We will see more on that later. This knight cannot move because of the pin, and now this rook cannot move because of the knight. Black plays bishop to d7, one of the few moves available, hoping to develop the bishop to b5 or a4, and perhaps get ready to castle if he moves the queen as well. To d7 perhaps. I castle queenside. Bishop to a4, hoping to create weaknesses, but instead of moving my knight, I play rook to e1, immediately counterattacking and threatening the pawn. Bishop retreats in order to defend. Now knight to c5, trying to eliminate the defender. Bishop takes, pawn recaptures, and now the problem for black is, say, if he plays a random move like a5, I can crash through with rook takes pawn, and the rook cannot be recaptured because of the check. So in other words, d5 has become weak. Black plays c6 instead, protecting the pawn, but this also opens up the diagonal for the queen. And if black successfully moves the queen, he's able to castle queenside and get his king into safety. But this will no longer be possible. I play c4. Let's say if queen to c7 is played in order to castle, a move that wasn't played, we can see that there's no longer a defense on f6, just a pawn, and I got two attackers. So bishop takes, preventing black from castling. If pawn recaptures, queen takes, black cannot castle. And if queen to d8, in order to exchange queens and castle later in the game perhaps, I can crush through with rook takes e6 check, bishop recaptures, queen takes bishop check, queen blocks forced, queen takes queen mate. So an attempt of black to castle queenside will lead to a mate. This wasn't played. After c4, to create more weaknesses for black, black abandons the idea to castle queenside, plays king to f7 instead, adding more defenders to the knight and the pawn, and opening up play for a bishop and queen. I play knight to e5, check, king goes to e7, pawn takes pawn, pawn recaptures. Now I'm crashing through, rook takes pawn, pawn recaptures, bishop takes knight, check, pawn recaptures, knight to c6, check with a fork, king moves to f7, knight takes queen, check, rook recaptures, queen to h5, check, king moves to f8, queen h8, check, king to f7, queen h7, check. This forces the king back to the 8th rank. King moves to f8. Finally, I can bring the rook in, rook to e7, with the mate in the next move. Rook to e8, queen g7 mate. So that's an example of how we play the lion on the white side of the board. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. Please leave a comment and have a great evening.